is like so wrong on so many levels. Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice. We know him well. We don't love him well. Kenny Stancil over at Common Dreams and Sharon Zhang over at Truthout both put out articles this week about this. And this is based on a ProPublica report. For those who haven't been following, we'll start by ProPublica first put out this report called Clarence Thomas had undisclosed luxury travel gifts from a billionaire. So, for over 20 years, Clarence Thomas has been treated to luxury vacations by billionaire Republican donor Harlan Crow. Why does this matter? He goes on cruises in far-flung locales on Crow's yacht. Oh, nice. The Michaela Rose.
Boats.
He flies on his private jet. Yes, it's boats.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
And he keeps company with Crow's powerful friends at his private resort, which he thought was no problem. So the extent of Crow's largesse has never been revealed until now. And that is this article in ProPublica, published April 6th, about Clarence Thomas and the billionaire. Now, a lot of this, I think, was partisan in a way, but it's also nonpartisan in that it's corruption. And it doesn't matter who it is, but they certainly had motivation to go after a Republican Supreme Court justice while Joe Biden is in office. And at least they had a 50-50 in the Senate. I don't know how they would get one through, but that's another story. And this is an 18-minute long article that you can actually listen to. They can play in audio. I'm not going to read this article, but what I want to point out was this relationship that they had, but then it got worse because not on April 6th, but on May 4th, they printed and released that Clarence Thomas had a child in private school, and this same billionaire financier donor also paid the tuition. Get the hell out of here. Yep. True. So, Crow paid for private school for a relative Thomas said that he was raising as a son. This is way outside the norm. Again, great work by the same trio over at ProPublica that has been on this for over a month. This is a 14-minute long read, listen to. So I'm not going to go through this one either, but I will reference these articles in the chat afterward, in the doobly-doo afterwards, and in the Substack. So what happens as a development is, all right, so some people are now calling for Senate investigations and hearings into this corruption. And wait a minute. So Clarence Thomas is this level of guilty and he's just allowed to get away with it? Well, apparently, and let's look into exactly why. So Kenny Stancil has the article here, Common Dreams, Indie Media Award honoree.
You got it.
Yeah, I know I got it because I did it beforehand. Billionaire Harlan Crow also bankrolled GOP lawmakers blocking SCOTUS ethics reform. He bought them all. He bought them all. A new analysis shows Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee have received more than $450,000 from the same GOP mega donor who has lavished Justice Clarence Thomas with undisclosed gifts. Yes, exactly, Desert Mantis. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So, the Senate Judiciary Committee on Monday sent a letter asking Harlan Crow, the billionaire GOP mega donor who has secretly showered U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas with hundreds of thousands of dollars in gifts since the mid-90s, to provide a full accounting of his financial ties to Thomas and any other judges on the High Court. But it comes as no surprise that none of the panel's 9 Republicans signed the letter, Accountable.us, declared Tuesday. And this was one of the first times that Accountable showed up on my radar. Because they have collectively accepted nearly $500,000 in campaign cash from Crow since the turn of the century, is a new announcement.
How much?
About $500,000 in campaign cash. Not quite that much. Not quite 1 million.
Just half.
Half of $1 million. Yes. Since the turn of the century, and that's as a new analysis from the Watchdog Group shows. But last month, one day after ProPublica published its bombshell report on Crow's under-the-table funding of near annual luxury vacations for Thomas, the first of which would become many revelations about the two men's financial relationship, Accountable.us calculated, with their infinite wisdom, as we know who Accountable is, that the current Republican members of the Senate Judiciary Committee received $453,300 from Crow between 2001 and 2022. They revised that figure up to $457,000 Tuesday in light of a $3,700 donation Crow made to Senator John Cornyn earlier this year in Texas. So here's the following. That's a list of Crow's total contributions to the 9 GOP lawmakers on the panel, as well as their affiliated PACs and joint fundraising committees in descending order. So, of course, the committee chair is Cornyn. He got the biggest payoff at $294,000. And he's going to make sure that no matter what, nothing's going to get called. But just in case, in order to wet everybody else's beak, keep them quiet, you've got all the other Republicans on the committee, including Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, a veritable who's who of douchebaggery. They're all on the take. And at least, at minimum, and again, this is since 2001. That's a long time. Marsha Blackburn, she's got to be pissed. First of all, she's the only woman on the list. First of all, she's the only woman on the list. She's only been a senator. I think she's had 2 campaigns, which is why you only have 6,400. That's 3,700 times 2. That's the maximum. Either that or it was only 1 campaign. I think she's only run for Senate once, and he donated both in the primary as well as in the general. So he maxed out in both cases. But they also had the related PACs, and they funnel money, and this is how they get past the $3,700 threshold. On top of the fact that this was over decades. So the longer they've been a senator, the more they got. And Kyle Herrig, who runs Accountable, there should be bipartisan outrage about the undisclosed gifts and travel billionaire mega donor Harlan Crow has given Justice Thomas. Senate Judiciary Republicans should join their Democratic colleagues to act. However, their silence so far may be because they've received hundreds of thousands of dollars from Crow as well. Yeah, they don't care. Who's going to hold them accountable? Their public, their voters, their constituents don't give a shit. The highest court in the land should have the highest ethical standards, he added. When it doesn't, Congress should exert its oversight authority. Agreed, yes. But not only have Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee with apparent conflicts of interest refused to join their Democratic colleagues in trying to establish enforceable ethics rules for the Supreme Court, but they've attempted to downplay the seriousness of the court's growing crisis of legitimacy. Scalia also was, by the way, going on junkets and free trips and doing all kinds of stuff. It's just that he died before they really got into him. Who watches The Watchmen is absolutely right, Rick Solis. Several of the panel's GOP members used last week's hearing on proposed Supreme Court ethics reforms, a hearing Chief Justice John Roberts refused to testify at, despite mounting evidence of possible corruption involving Thomas and others, including Roberts himself, as well as Justice Neil Gorsuch, as an opportunity for political grandstanding and performative outrage, Accountable noted on Tuesday. So they're partisan. They claim to be nonpartisan. They are absolutely 100% partisan. They are against the Republican judges here. Accountable.us has an agenda, folks.
And we use that same photo in a thumbnail.
Yeah, how about that? What, the one with...
not that photo, but like the one in their thing. Yeah, like I
Thomas
used that.
frowning?
Like,
no, that was literally on this thumbnail
right.
for this segment.
Right? Everyone uses that one.
Cornyn claimed that Congress did not have the authority to regulate the courts due to separation of powers, a claim that was disproven by an expert witness that testified at the hearing. Cruz claimed the hearing was not about judicial ethics, but instead was an attempt to attack Justice Thomas for having rich friends. Well, yes. It's not attacking him, but it's certainly attacking him for exploiting the fact that he has rich friends and accepting gifts from those rich friends, potentially for influence and at least a conversation and access.
Right.
Right. So, meanwhile, Mike Lee went so far as to say that when this chapter of American history is written, those who attack Justice Thomas today will be justly dismissed as intolerant bigots. Oh, my God. Anita Hill would have something to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Lindsey Graham, who is the ranking member, accused the left of trying to delegitimize the court and cherry-pick examples to make a point. Okay, Blanche. Echoing his right-wing ally, of course, Chuck Grassley argued, he's like 90, the fossil, that recent revelations are part of a long-term effort to cast doubt on certain judges and justices. Yeah, because they've been guilty for 30 fucking years. All because the left is opposed to recent court rulings. No, they've been opposed to every court ruling that guy's laid down since he got into the Supreme Court. Because he's bought lock, stock, and smoking barrel. And he's going to get away scot-free, as I said in the thumbnail. Kennedy, John Kennedy from Louisiana, for his part, denounced attacks on conservative justices as targeted and exaggerated and dismissed proposed Supreme Court ethics rules as unnecessary. Yeah, because they don't benefit him. So, 2 days after right-wing senators accused reform advocates of launching what Cruz called a smear campaign against Thomas, ProPublica revealed that Crow also paid tens of thousands of dollars for the jurist's grandnephew to attend a pair of private schools. This came after earlier exposés about Crow footing the bill for yacht trips, buying and remodeling Thomas's mother's home, and more. This is what they do. They don't get paid directly. They get paid through the families. Hunter Biden. James Biden. What? Sorry, I didn't say that. No, I did say that.
Mm-hmm.
Given the mounting evidence of potential connections, well, got to look into that. Given the mounting evidence of potential connections between Crow's gifts, which Thomas sought to keep hidden, and Thomas's inclination to rule in ways favorable to his super-rich benefactor, calls for the judge to resign or face impeachment are growing. Except, not only does Crow have links to numerous right-wing groups involved in the Supreme Court cases since Thomas was first confirmed to the bench in 91, but his own real estate company, Crow Holdings, was directly implicated in a 2021 case before the court. Guess who didn't recuse himself? As the Lever reported last month, Thomas voted to end the COVID-era federal eviction moratorium after Crow Holdings called the life-saving policy a threat to its profit margins. Now, as a group of New York City landlords prepares to ask the High Court to overturn local rent control laws condemned by Crow Holdings, a move that would endanger rent stabilization efforts nationwide, quote, there is no indication Thomas would recuse himself, the outlet noted. What a shock. Moreover, as Common Dreams reported last week,
Citizens United.
an Americans for Tax Fairness analysis of campaign finance data shows that after Thomas provided a deciding vote on the Citizens United case, the Crow's family's average annual campaign contributions soared by 862% from about $163,000 a year before 2010 to over $1.5 million a year since. This massive increase, which is partly reflected in Crow's donations to Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee, underscores how the 5-4 ruling that effectively legalized unlimited political spending has strengthened the wealthy's ability to shape electoral outcomes, further undermining U.S. democracy. On Tuesday, the Lever argued that the main goal of Crow and other billionaires who provide gifts and outside money to members of the Supreme Court is not to obtain certain decisions in specific cases, given that the court's right-wing ideologues would likely rule conservatively anyway, but to prevent GOP appointees from becoming more liberal over time, a phenomenon that has occurred in the past. So alluding to Monday's letter from the Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Dick Durbin from Illinois, WAPO reported that, quote, if Crow ignores the request for information by the committee's May 22nd deadline, it's unclear what Durbin's next move would be, unquote. The San Francisco Chronicle reported Tuesday that Senator Feinstein, Fossil, is returning to Capitol Hill after an illness kept her away from the Senate since February. We know all about that. Her absence has left Durbin without a majority on the panel, enabling the GOP minority to impede action, but her return would open up options. You think she's going to do something? In an interview with CNN on Sunday, Durbin did not rule out the possibility of a subpoena, saying that everything is on the table. Sure. Except that Durbin's running for re-election when? I'm sure Harlan Crow's money is going to find its way into his coffers, too. In addition to
the
implementation...
thing about Feinstein, where they have like a panic alarm whenever she like leaves the room, like so that like there's always a staffer that will be with her, you know.
She's 90. There should
like,
be.
They like literally have like a phone
alone.
thing.
Yeah, like a life alert.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, in addition to the implementation of robust ethics rules, progressives have called for far-reaching changes to disempower the country's rogue Supreme Court justices, including expanding the court. Seats have been added 7 times throughout U.S. history, and then have been pulled back by future presidents. Polling data shows that public approval of the nation's chief judicial body has decreased sharply in the months since its reactionary supermajority eliminated the constitutional right to abortion care, among other harmful and unpopular decisions. That's their opinion, man.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree, but it's certainly an opinion. According to a survey conducted last month, nearly 2/3 of U.S. adults no longer have confidence in the high court. Who conducted that survey? Oh, God. New Republic. Another shitlib outlet. Garbage. Where'd it come from? Poll conducted by NPR, PBS NewsHour, and the Marist Institute for Public Opinion. Shitlibs.
So it's going to be like
bias,
all old people.
Bias. All right. So here's the Sharon Zhang
I don't
article.
have confidence in it either. I would have told them same thing, but
Sharon basically wrote the same article, only a little bit tighter. Bombshell reports uncovered. Okay. And this is where I saw initially, I think they actually referenced here it is, the Accountable report. So I saw Sharon's report from Accountable, and I'm like, who is this Accountable? And that's when I started to look into how shitlibby and narrative managing, and they're just part of the censorship industrial complex. All right.